Okay, here we are, about to start the 10 a.m. turn. Yeah. And last turn was a little quiet, to be honest. Yule did not pursue his attack. Instead, they lined up and stared at each other, and the silent guns scared one of Bernie's units into collapsing. Heath's pulled back. He's trying to reorganize, but some of his units are cut off from him. 11th Corps is about ready to surround him. The Beaufort's Cav, well, Merritt's coming to join him, and then they're going to withdraw somewhere, somewhere safe. Maybe with the hopes of being able to do something about this, but it's going to be too late. The wagon's going to get through. I don't actually necessarily know that the wagon exists because I was kind of behind the lines here, but if you look, there might have been a roadway through that shows that. I'm not sure. Stuart's off on this weird little escapade that doesn't look very productive and may actually be very dangerous. I think his goal is to kind of ride around the Union Army. That seems like a Stuart thing to do. And what do we got here? 12th Corps is moving up to try to help extricate 1st Corps, but it looks like it might just get completely eliminated, more or less. 5th Corps is coming up to try to anchor 12th Corps. 5th Corps is also over there on 3rd Corps. Meanwhile, 6th Corps is trying to get itself into position. It should start digging in on Culp's Hill here, and maybe a little bit on Cemetery as well, and get me into a position where I have a defensive line against when 3rd Corps breaks, because the Confederate 2nd is just larger. Union 2nd Corps is coming up, threatening Stuart. This is part of 6th, also was involved in that. We don't have a lot left off board, really. The Union's got 2 divisions from 6th and 2nd that are still trickling their way in. But otherwise, everything's not committed, but everything's on the board, pretty much. Yeah. And the Union Cav holding the right flank off 3rd Corps up there. It's not really... So, Cav is okay on defense. So I don't really want to attack them, although they may be worth more. I don't remember if they are. I just don't recall. We haven't taken any real hit. Well, I think we did take one. Yeah, friendly Cav units eliminated are worth 5 Army victory points, as opposed to, I think, 3 for an infantry, 4 for artillery. So there's that. We'll swap batteries. Then I'm going to go down, play a little bit of raid. And because, the stupid way my mind works, I'm going to try to stay awake all day. And get to bed during the night at some point. And maybe be awake and willing to go shopping tomorrow. I kind of have to. Yes, I have food. I always have food. But, like, you know, I'm down to like half a carton of eggs. I'm out of my ham, which is a big deal. I've been eating some peanut butter and jelly and stuff like that, but it's just not, you know, not what I'm used to. I actually have tons of food. It's just I'm out of ham, and I'm running low on bread. Not real low, but low enough that I feel like I really do need to go shopping. Like, not being able to make my ham sandwiches, that is like, wow, I'm screwed. You know, that's just what I think. You know, even though I have other options. But it also means, like, as I drag out the shopping delay, I end up having to haul a heavier cart. It's supposed to get pretty damn hot today. It's over 90s each day. So, you know, ideally I would have already gone shopping instead of playing this. But the way I think is, yeah, I don't want to go shopping. I slept, you know, I haven't gotten my sleep yet. And then, you know, about an hour or whatever, I still probably could. It would still be a reasonable temperature when I get home. But, well, like in the 80s or something. But I haven't slept, you know. Anyway, somehow that's just the way that I manage to avoid doing the things I don't want to do, is I always come up with some kind of excuse for it. I did pull down some frozen turkey, ground turkey, that I'm planning on cooking, but it's frozen, so, you know. So I may be already planning for even greater failures than I have allowed myself to endeavor in this week. And boy, I'm just chattering away, am I not? Confederates with their small number of corps are really easier to deal with. Now, obviously, I should probably have the Army of the Potomac sheet over here, but I find tracking easier if I have them both together at the same place. Oh, this one's really crappy. Oh well. So the Confederates, Heath is in recovery. I'm moving McLaws into recovery. He's going to have to pull back a little bit, letting Pender, who's got a direct command, move forward. I think Anderson is going to swing back over, maybe. I don't know yet. He may try to take the center and cover for Heath, which was my initial intention. But I'm kind of worried about First Corps getting away, at least part of it. Part of it's gone. For the Confederate First Corps, Hood has got attack orders. Like I said, McLaws is pulling out. Anderson I put under Pickett I put under directed orders so that he can take his position up on 12th Corps, make its situation untenable. It's really just up there to try to help 1st Corps withdraw, but that may not be possible anyway. And oops, all of 2nd Corps, I had it under direct. I paid for attacks on all of them. I'm going to send the waves forward at this point. The reason that McLaws, he's already shaken. I want to get him back and recover him. Pender's in a little bit better condition, but I didn't want to pay for an attack with him. Obviously, Heath, I have to pay something, I think, to keep. No, once he's in R&R, he can stay there for free. I have to pay to get him out of it, but that's fine. And yeah, if Anderson moves up, he'll cover for him, and it'll be all fine. These poor suckers try to find their home. And Stuart got a directed command because he's still too close to the enemy to do anything, to go into March as far as I'm concerned. He legitimately could, but it's possible 2nd Corps would come up on him, so I want to make sure that I can trigger a movement and get away. And then these guys are all in March, probably not doing a hell of a lot. Now it's on to the Union. The Union's a lot more painful to do. The Confederates with just 3 Corps and 1 Army commander make it a lot easier to manage the command phase, but that's life. I have 2 more points. I'm going to run through my head whether or not I want to devote some more of these bonus points. They're very helpful, and 2nd Corps could probably use them. I think I will actually spend both on 2nd Corps for next turn. Fear I'm not going to be able to break my sleeping habit. It's a little afternoon. I'm getting real tired, which makes sense. I slept until 8 p.m., right? somebody was up on my roof, up to something. I went outside to see who it was. I didn't see anybody up there. There were a couple of woodpeckers, though, on one of my logs, which I really need to cut. But like everything, need to do something doesn't mean I actually get around to it, right? All right, for the Union commands, and I'm hoping I got everything where it belongs. Robinson got a huge quantity of points, like 6 points. Meade wasn't bad. I think he got 3. He spent one of them for future points for 3rd Corps. Robinson spent one for future points for 12th Corps, but otherwise they boosted people who are doing stuff. So what's kind of interesting, well, only Wadsworth of the original defense is still going to remain in defense orders here. I'm going to try to get Doubleday out of there, so I gave him directed orders. 12th Corps has entered into the defense orders. 3rd Corps is in defense orders. Gregg is in defense orders. Kilpatrick didn't get the points for it. In fact, he got no points, so he's in the cup. Who's that? Bulow. Bulow is 11th Corps. He's going to try to chase down Heath's units here. These guys, I think, are in directed orders to come up behind him. The other 11th Corps unit is in the cup. It's going to try to cover, I guess Doubleday's withdrawal over in that area. We got the interesting build orders for Howe covering up here. Ayres, he's within range now, so he's got defend orders along with 3rd Corps, along with Gregg. This line, I'm intending to keep falling back, possibly at some Army morale cost. Nobody's in reserve orders yet, and I really need to get somebody there, but I also really need to move some units. So like Newton, I want to get him up there. 2nd Corps, you know, I could have put like Caldwell in reserve or something like that, because he's not really doing anything at all. So that would actually be helpful. These guys back here, I almost feel like reserve order. I don't know, because you can fight on the operational map, so it doesn't make sense. What I was going to say is I almost feel like you shouldn't be allowed to put units in reserve if they're not on the battle map. But yeah. So that's going to set us up for initiative. The Union's going to have a +1 on the die roll for this. I'm not going to do that first initiative. Although it would actually probably make sense for me to do that first turn initiative. Just because I know what the modifier is right now. But it is very likely to be an action that I want to pay attention to and do stuff for. And right now, I really don't feel up to doing anything. I'm tired, really tired. Plus, it's starting to get a little warm up here. I forgot about that aspect. All right. Anyway, we've made a lot of progress today, actually. So I don't feel too terrible, given the amount of raid I've been playing. I'm hoping I got everything that belongs in the cup in the cup. It's so confusing with, you know, all the different orders working different ways. I look them up when I feel confused, but sometimes I'm mistaken when as to how confused I actually am. There it is, about 3:20 in the morning, I guess. I just checked, and I got about 40 minutes before I have to go play raid again. I got about 5 hours of sleep during the day, which I don't care about that, but in terms of like shopping and whatnot, might mean I'm going to bed a little earlier and maybe get up, in these little half sleeps or whatever it is, and be able to go shopping in the morning. I hope, maybe, kinda. I could set an alarm or something, but that's a lot of work. My alarm's set for 4 p.m., which is a good time for me to wake up. on Fridays. Anyway, I figure let's get started. So initiative, I have Reynolds has a couple of points, or has 1 point he's throwing in, which is a +2 to the die roll. And once again, the Union gets initiative. I don't know what they're going to do with it. It was to activate Doubleday, who was direct command, and pulled him back. He only got half movement, but still, he's able to make quite a bit of distance. The problem is that leaves Wadsworth stuck out here. And I have like a shaken unit in here that I don't know whether it was supposed to be shaken. It was under a leader. You know, it's hard to tell when you're going on a per unit morale state rather than something that you can actually see because it's on top of a stack. But I mean, it's quite possible he failed a check or something. I don't think it happened. I think I erred. But now I won the initiative again for the next activation, and I've got a few options that would work here. One, I can pull from the cup and hope to get myself Wadsworth. I've got a lot of units in the cup, a lot of defensive units in a way. This isn't the optimal time to be pulling, other than if I get Wadsworth, who I would really like to get the hell out of there. Another option would be to move Williams forward. He's in the cup. Never mind. He's also defense. All right, so in the cup we go, I guess. Instead, I end up pulling Greg. Now, he falls back a little bit. This creates issues, and this is one of the things I don't know if I like about Chitpul. It's got sort of a balance on two directions, right? I go, you go lets you move all your units at once and always have perfect lines, and there's never any kind of deformations that, you know, in American Civil War, right? Let's leave some other eras out. There's never any deformations to take advantage of, right? Unless a player just screws up. That can be mitigated by things like the CWB system with its orders, or some other kind of mechanism that occasionally generates a situation like, I think it's Sickles who got out of line. It's either Sickles or Sykes, and I can never remember. Who ended up in the wrong place, essentially, moving forward, not following the commander's intended orders, but thinking that he was taking advantage of a situation that needed to be dealt with. If I just pull Greg away, which I might have wanted to do, as far as I possibly could have, I would be back here somewhere. There'd be a whole flank open, and if Early gets the activity, he slams in there, and it just feels weird, right? Any pulsing game does this. You see it in Great Battles of History, stuff like that. And that's the question. Like, it's too much. All these forces are moving at once. They're not moving in conjunction, though. So there would be some opportunity, and they're probably not moving as slowly as they have to in order to maintain some sort of contact to prevent a horrible outflanking type situation. And I really don't know what the answer is. It's almost like there should be some sort of chaining capability that would allow you to, I don't know, to activate it all as a unit if you get lucky. Like you can get a continuation or something like that. And things like Men of Iron have that kind of idea. And it helps a little bit. Something like Great Battles of History has some capability towards that, where if you have like the initiative, whatever, if you have good leaders, you can kind of incorporate them, but it's really kind of gamey feeling. With this, yeah, the Union has the advantage, but they can't guarantee, especially since they're just pulling from a cup, which unit would move next within that advantage. So It's a hard problem. It's like I don't feel like either model actually works properly. Because I was pulling from the cup, I forgot. Greg is actually on defend orders, so he moved about as far as he would allow to move anyway. So no big deal there. I just pulled Ayers, and I checked him because I thought he might be. And he is. You know, do I want to give way? Yeah. There's danger of an outflank, whatever, coming through the town, but I am also kind of anchoring third corps. I don't want to expose them. And I'm already back a little bit. I can back up a little bit, not much. Got Bernie withdrawing, and before I withdrew, I fired off some artillery here. I haven't withdrawn yet. I haven't figured out where the hell he can go, but again, he's got to try to maintain connection, so... And he's under defend order, so he can only go a couple hexes anyway. The Confederates are not going to counter battery because they want to save their support fire for the attacks that they have planned. The Union doesn't know about this. They might also want to, but they'll likely have their artillery in the front line. The Union honestly got pretty lucky. I could have moved as fast as I wanted to because the entire line basically moved back one after the other. Greg, then Bernie, then Humphreys. Well, Ayers was in there also, but like if I knew I was getting that kind of string of activations or whatever, I might have chanced pushing a little further back. But instead, I've just fallen back a little bit. Have I given up any defensive terrain? It's hard to tell. I don't think... Oh, that might be a point. I think I gave up this hex here, and that's worth... like a point. Because the terrain's not glaringly obvious. You know, like I was up here on the wrong side of the slope. I'm fine there. I don't lose anything for defending there. I actually begin to wonder if you want to defend indefensible terrain more. Oh, boy. And there's something that increases the cost. Oh, if you're in defend. Uh-oh. Okay, that's another point. Forgot about that. Haven't been applying it too much. And it's like, yeah, some of it's kind of like this alchemy and voodoo, because when do you end up remembering to apply all these different little bits of the rules? The main system is just so clunky, right? In so many ways that it ends up, you ignore big parts of it if you're me. So Hood's launching his attack on Wadsworth. The Confederates got the next activation. They fire that off. And of course, the map's kind of poochy around here, so McLaws is getting disordered. It's not worth trying to fix. I'll end up pooching those, and I need those right now. It's just, you got to leave the messes where they are and fix them when you need to fix them. And some of it's because the tables are not aligned the same, but most of it is just these maps do not lie flat, period. Big attack, and it reminded me of a rule I read but forgot about entirely, which is that the attacker can fall back. The active player can fall back at the end of an attack. And it just counts as a retreat. It doesn't cause any additional morale checks, whatever. I don't want to do it anywhere, but it was an interesting concept. Oops, I forgot to apply cohesion hits against those. I'll get to that in a moment. It's funny because their worst attack, which was down here, which I think was +3 on both sides because of the attack defender bonus, was the only successful one. The other two were kind of stalemates. They were more in the +5, +6 range. Of course, +5, +6 to 0. Because again, the attack defend bonus. No leaders were killed. We pushed forward. I think that's it for now. I've run out probably my 40 minutes. I've done what was a painful attack here, in a sense. You know, not horrible, but painful. The pooching has caused more spillage. Too bad. The amount of time must have been an illusion because, you know, it's just, the game's so fucking taxing on me, but there's no way. I moved almost nothing. I mean, I moved these few pieces back a little bit, this guy back a little bit, and I did one division's attack. That's it. Went downstairs just to check to make sure. 40 minutes indeed. Damn near. Yeah. This game is obscene. It really is. Now, of course, there's my chattering, which takes up a good part of it. But, you know, when I'm thinking that, like, I remember partway through the second day, partway through the first day, when things got really heavy, was when turns in TSS started taking 20 minutes each. You know? And 40 minutes to an hour for a turn would be if everything's engaged. Here, it's 40 minutes to conduct one battle, you know, one division's battles. I don't even know if that's visible through the camera. Getting a really nice sun here, and again, it's the impact of the fires and all the smoke that's in the sky and whatnot. But I'm not seeing it on here. Let me see downstairs. So weird. It's like I know people were able to see the aurora borealis through their cameras better, or like they could see it and couldn't see it with their naked eye, really. But here it's like the sun is just being blocked out by the camera, I think by the same kind of effect. I am not catching it at all. It's really this pretty orange. You can kind of see the glow now coming through the tree, but it's like the actual sun is not showing up on the camera. You know, the cameras, first of all, in and of themselves are kind of weird, but they perform a lot of like calculations and light corrections and all that. And that's what you're kind of getting. I don't know what time it is. Maybe 9 or so. Maybe a little earlier. It might be as early as 7. I honestly don't know. I knew a while ago, like a moment ago, in the sense that like my eyes saw the clock, and I know that I'm kind of tired. Okay, so for some life news, I managed to, like you care, but it's more interesting than the game when it comes down to it. Because all I do there is bitch. I managed to go shopping yesterday, and the trip home was brutal because the heat, the hill, the weight of the groceries, and I don't know. I didn't buy myself any particular treats. I got some potato chips or something, but and stuff. You know, I got things that I like, but I didn't get like anything sweet or anything like that. And I often don't. But the most massive craving for sweet things hit me, and I've been overeating, trying to. It's sort of like people who can't achieve orgasm, like having sex a lot. You know? And except I know what good food should taste like. Yeah, and I also woke up with the most incredible craving for a Coke. Just weird. Anyway, the events in Raid have required me to like pretty much play non-stop, other than when I'm sleeping. That scattered existence. So that's why I haven't been up here, but now I can get a little bit in, and I don't really feel like I can sleep. There are reasons for delaying pushing more resources out right now. Not great ones, but I'm probably going to have to do it at some point. But I feel really guilty about not playing, so I'm going to try to squeeze a couple turns out. Turns, I mean a couple of chip pulls or whatever, a couple of divisions actions. Right? Oh, boy. Open up with a fairly simple attack coming from here with Barlow hitting Heath. And the remnants over here. We destroyed a unit. That causes some morale hits on multiple sides of the issue. It must have been around 8:30. It's around 8:40 now, 8:45, somewhere in there. Heath got to move. He didn't want to do anything with those. And then Anderson, and looks like Union gets their choice this time. I've moved a few more divisions without any fighting or anything happening. Basically, both sides are just pulling from the cup because I don't want to launch the attacks that I planned for early, or for Ewell up here. There's not really any reason to, but I'm having some issues in terms of like keeping track, you know, the same complaints, keeping track of what fucking brigades are which and keeping their pieces together. So much easier with line extensions than it is with this shit. Like, and just saying the whole brigade operates as one thing, if it gets broken apart due to the line extensions, it falls apart more heavily and retreats. Poochie map, all kind of shit like that. I know that I had found something that really, really disturbed me about the chit pull or pulsing, but now I can't fucking remember it. It had been something kind of interesting. Oh yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, so this is something I haven't mentioned because it's not inimical to chit pull systems, really. But like, I've got Meade up here. Now, I want to move him at some point. I noticed I wanted to move him when I moved those forces. I don't know where I want Meade. I will know much, much later in the turn. But by that point, I won't be focusing on this little center, and he might just be left stranded out there, not moving, and captured, you know, by Confederate forces or something. Highly unlikely. 12th Corps, I pulled them down off the ridge here to help defend against this because I don't know when that's going to move, and yeah, it looks scary. And also, I'm not really taking up a good defensive position against Confederate First Corps. I'm trying to keep something open so that the Union First Corps can slip away. But it's hard to do. I mean, some of First Corps is way up here. This is Wadsworth up here. I don't think I can save them. You know, they're basically surrounded. Doubleday can't do it. He's wrecked. Beaufort might be able to create some connection as well. But otherwise, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm on defend orders. I can't punch my way through the Confederate lines or anything like that. Not that those units would have the capability to do that. This is something, some of the Union divisions are really tiny. So like Barlow here has a really, really tiny division. So, and he was fighting, he was doing mop-up operations, which works just fine. Anderson moving forward somewhere. I don't know where because I can't read these things. This might be him. I see A-L. No, there's A-N. Anderson, yeah. And McLaws moving a little bit forward, but he's under R&R rules. So he's not going to recover right now. I may have... No. But he still doesn't want to close with the enemy particularly. So, right now he's holding what looks like part of the line, but really shouldn't be. But I also want him to present, I want the Confederates to present a solid line at this point. Oh, is that Anderson there? That's a problem if it is. Fuck. Okay, so I walked up here and I couldn't, I think. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know. They may have been there already. Like, I wasn't even aware that this is Union forces here. I thought, let's just join the rest of the Confederate units. For safety's sake, I should pull back. Really hard to tell whose units are whose in this game. The color schemes are such especially with these like blue on tans, and then I don't know, the reds on blues and stuff. It just all kind of mixes together. It all looks the same. Like, I can tell these are Union because they're very much not Confederate colors anywhere near there. But, you know, when the actual unit, so like the commander of this unit is a red commander, the same as Hood is a red commander. Boy, does that obscure everything, right? It's the same thing. It really is. Once again, I'm too emotionally fatigued to do a hell of a lot. Like, yeah, I made it through the cups. Cool. I know now on a Confederate activation, sure, I got a few. I could fuck around a little bit longer. It's not like there's any reason Ewell wants to make his attacks right now. In fact, he may just not want to make them. Maybe I shouldn't have even committed, but the only reason to want to make them is I spent command points on them, and the way to prevent, so the way I would prevent making them is if I run out the clock and the Union ends up eating some of my turns. But that may mean a more sporadic attack and all kind of shit like that. So I think I'm better off trying to fire them off. And I probably need to do it pretty soon. Like, I shouldn't have been delaying, you know? Things like McLaws, these are just wastes, right? I've cleared him out of there. At the very least, even if he was adjacent, he probably doesn't want to be. Although, the nice thing about it was I had him surrounded by being there. Now I don't have him surrounded anymore. And this is kind of a tough nut to fight, but I feel like I'm violating, you know, at least the spirit of R&R if I'm leaving units in zones. I don't know if I don't think there's a rule that requires that I get out of them, but I don't want to look it up or anything. I'm just sick of this. So yeah, I'm sick of it enough that I'm going to go play some Raid instead, and you will probably not be back until Sunday. Yeah, a little later. I've eaten some food that I shouldn't have. It's like 11 a.m. Haven't been able to sleep. So I figure, screw it. Let's go ahead. Keep going. I set my alarm in case I fall asleep. Problem is my mind is whirring. So the first part was I started coming up with from the book that I'm reading, I came up with an idea for a story that I really like. Well, I've been playing around with a broader idea, but I narrowed a focus that I don't think anybody's ever dealt with. So, I may be wrong, but. And then the other side is then I said, look, I'm going to try to sleep. And I had like a UFO stories thing that I had snoozed with for a while back. And I turned that back on. And it just, you know, sometimes watching, you know, or listening to videos while I try to sleep just doesn't work. I pay too much attention. And this one I was. And then the final story in it was really weird because it was the first time I've ever heard someone describe anything that at least partially sounded like what I saw. This was much more exciting, but you know, it started out looking like a full moon and whatnot, and then moved up above, adjacent to them instead of above, which is a little different. Anyway, let's get going. I hate about summer. I got all these fucking kids back here. There's like a summer camp type thing. I don't know if that's what I'm hearing here, but I'm usually not up this late in the day. It's just, you know, repetitive noises and annoying voices, and you just want to kill the little things, don't you? Anyway. I could close my window, but I kind of like the illusion that I'm cooling the house by having it open. It's still not hot, so. So what did we do? We moved some of 3rd Corps, or some of 11th Corps came up here, 3rd Division of 11th Corps, that's what I meant. and destroyed another one of Heath's units. Now we're down to just one lost guy, I think. No, there's still an artillery back here, which is kind of an annoying thing to get rid of. And Beaufort's pulled back to help support First Corps a little bit. He didn't get a lot of movement. I guess that's about it on this side. Just rolling through. We're done with the cups for now. More could go in them, but turning on the fan helps prevent me from hearing them as much. Yeah, they're still there, but it gives me something else I can focus on at the very least. That's what I used to always do. When I lived in Warwick, New York, I lived in a small enough house, and at other times in my life as well, where noises would bother me, and like the TV being on or whatever, but just hearing shit that I didn't want to cope with. Turning the fan on always helped. But it's also the way I used to sleep before I got to watching videos. Okay, so Johnson slammed into Ayres up here, and the one attack on the flank wasn't too bad. The others were pretty bad attacks. We got flung back. Now Ayres is on defend orders, and we definitely took more than we received there when you add everything up, and that's not too good. This includes Walker's the Stonewall Brigade up there, which is really kind of melted pretty fast compared to what I'm used to it doing. That is because, look, when you're just exchanging fire in games like TSS or CWB, using fire combat tables at a distance, you get to kind of modulate things, and you're able to say, you know what, my morale's better. I can sustain these hits. Or if your morale's really good, it's pretty easy to tell whether or not you have even forces, whatnot. Here, the way the combat system works just ends up making it not absolutely clear what kind of odds you have, like what kind of bonus you're going to be walking into. Sometimes I'm rather surprised. And a lot of it's like, yeah, you could count the factors and you could pre-calculate everything. I don't like to do that in games. I like to play more by feel. And I kind of feel like, to add to all the burden, this is a game where you kind of can't play by feel very well. I slam into units and I part of it's the pulsing, right? If I was making an across the front attack with all my units at once, which I do think is realistically believable, as opposed to this, hey, I have to attack with one division, and if I'm facing a solid line, I am going to get flanking penalties, essentially. Not the minuses from flanking, but I'm going to be facing more stacks, and I'm going to just continuously be facing more stacks because I just keep having to push units up against that solid line. And then, it's not like anything gets negated if it's not involved in the combat. So, yeah, it's just like, ouch. I may have been calculating it wrong. I have to look at that. I calculated the total strength points of the units. I'm not sure. See, I know that every hex must be attacked, which kind of means there should be no supporting fire for the defender. But I seem to remember that there is supporting fire for the defender. So, like, I had a unit in this hex, had to attack both of these. I think that's what it was. Whatever. I was in that kind of situation where I had to attack two hexes with one. I ended up at a bad odds ratio, which gives me a big, minus penalty to begin with. Maybe I can make up for it with, this stack of supporting units, and I may have the wrong word, right? Like, it may not be supporting fire. That may be, it's like I can't remember it, but they all have kind of the same effect. They give you the equivalent of an odds shift. Fucking kids. God. This is why I should not ever own a gun, because I would be so tempted to just like shut them down. Scanning the rules because I don't want to dig through everything, but contributing fire, unactivated units or stacks that are adjacent to activated units, and also in the ZOC of units being attacked can lend a modifier. I don't see any similar for defense, except attacking under defend orders, which maybe does that, and I'll worry about that when I get there. With the unit being attacked, yeah, this is fine. So I think I actually did it right, which is that I calculate the numbers out, and this is a big deal because both stacks of the, so it kind of evens out, and here's why. The excess unit also receives casualties. So if I'm here hitting both these stacks, yeah, if I get to, close to an even odds roll, I might get lucky, I might get unlucky. But if I get lucky, I do a lot of damage to 2 whole stacks of units and maybe break the whole thing. Yeah, but it feels funky. Like, what that means then is that where 2 divisions in an attack, in a coordinated assault, kind of overlap, the hex in which they overlap and the units themselves at the edges are going to take more of the casualties than the rest of the unit. When what I feel like what generally is happening, what's attempting to be happening, is a full frontal attack. Now, is that guaranteed to happen? There are reasons it might not. One, the line might no longer be a line. This isn't strict linear combat at this era, and forces sometimes, even in linear combat, forces sometimes got ahead or behind each other. A second is the concept of echelon attacks, which the game seems to almost require, right? With the, okay, I hit with this one, then with this one, then with that one. I'm not ever convinced as to what the advantage of echelon attacks is, but I mean, the idea, I guess, is that you're pulling reserves off of other parts of the line, but none of that's represented here, right? But maybe it is with that overlapping. It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. Whereas I can wrap my head around what's happening in CWB and TSS very, very easily. It may be an abstraction that is false, but I feel like this is also not usually correct either. So the Union, probably because of the initiative bonus, has actually run out of both cups and orders that can be activated on their own. And there really ought to be some symbology or something to indicate these are the 2, and maybe this, yeah, I think this, that can be activated separate, like you don't have to draw a chit for it. You don't put a chit in the cup form. It's just really annoying that, like, the chart all looks the same. Oh, my pipe's still blowing away. What I was trying to say before I got into my normal, let's complain about this again for the 18th time, but the game fucking annoys me that much, is that the Confederates do have 2 attack commands, 3 of these direct commands. I think if the attacks get degraded, they fall into the direct command. But if Union gets initiative, which they're more likely to than not, they're going to be degrading Confederate orders over here. Now, it might be worth degrading the attack orders because I really was unhappy with the results I got going up against that line, and it's not going to get any better. The line, this was the flanking attack. I had 1 hex where I got to get good odds on. And I don't have to pay the fatigue costs if the attack order is burned, if they fail to make it. Interesting things. Hayes moves up here. Stuart runs away and is continuing his, let's encircle the army again. Isn't that cool? It really isn't. I wish I had him still back there. I don't know why, but he could do flank attacks and start. Really, the frontal assault just does not feel comfortable, much as it was the common thing in Gettysburg. I'm so like dissuaded from doing it in this game compared to most ACW games. Not necessarily because of the results, because the results are so random. Maybe because of the complexity of making those attacks. Pender came up and slammed into Shirts here and started buckling him back. It's very clear that the Union's not going to be holding a line here, but, you know, we're helping extricate, I guess, Beaufort when it comes down to it, but he's over here now. And we did a lot of damage to Heath, so that's kind of cool. That's going to put us to the operational movement segment, as the Union actually got quite a few initiatives in a row and burned through not only the attacks that I had proposed. I kind of allowed them to burn because, again, I just don't want to make the attacks. But also through when they got into the direct attack, the directed orders, and in the Cup. Only Early got to go out of Rhodes and Early, and you know that was like 5 initiatives or something to burn all that. But anyway, the artillery here plinked those. This is kind of interesting because zone of influence is there, which means while you're under artillery fire, you can break morale, which is cool. I'm not sure. It may be a little too extreme because morale is harder to maintain in this game. Like if you consider in like CWB, the units will stand up to artillery fire. These guys are sitting here at Shaken. Every single one of them, by the way, they've all got 6 morale, which means they've got +6 on the die roll. -1 for the zone of influence, which means +5 on the die roll. If they roll a 10 or higher, they're fine, okay? Which is more than half the time. If they get a Shaken result, though, they're in trouble. Because then if they roll a Shaken again, essentially, they take cohesion hits and must retreat. And that breaks the line up. And it feels like the impact of kind of low-level morale effects in this game, like the effect of trying to rally while holding your position in the line. I'm fine if they can't rally. I'm fine if they keep that Shaken marker, but I really don't like what this star does. It's a cohesion hit and a must retreat, which is really nasty. It breaks the line up. I think it gives a little bit more of an advantage to attack than I'd like to see. It's hard to tell, you know, whether so much of this game is like, am I doing things right by the rolls? And am I doing things, you know, well in terms of like manipulating my forces so I'm getting the kind of attack that I'm supposed to get and the kind of defense that I'm supposed to get, although the defense is a lot easier to set up correctly. I mean, I could still fuck up the rolls in both cases. All right, so that's it for now. Once again, I'm going to try to get away and sleep or something. But yeah, that's the main painful part of the turn. We will have a fair amount of rally rolls and whatnot, so I'm not willing to push through the operational movement just to get to the end of the turn. Much as I'd like to load it up, that end of the turn is painful, and I just don't want to face it. I've mentioned Chosen before, just because I want to talk a little bit more. And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, is this as hard, as painful as Chosen? No, Chosen used to have, like, first of all, there wasn't a lot of stuff going on across a whole battlefield. It tended to be more like everything stacked in one hex, because there were, if I recall correctly, no stacking limitations or something like that. And it was just such a pain in the ass. It had mechanically painful and complex rules, but the biggest thing was the huge stacks that occurred in the game. But on top of that also, there's just the, look, you know, this is describing a situation that I find so much more exciting and interesting. I'm actually really into the story that's being told here when I can step away from the mechanical aspects of play. And, you know, and this is what kind of triggered me, is I was looking and I'm like, oh, I gotta move Sedgwick up, and I probably want to pull these guys back when they get a chance. I think they're done for the turn, although they may be in movement orders. I think they are. Get them back there. Start fortifying the cemetery culps area, and then fall back and give up the line there. And you know, Fifth Corps coming up, everything. We might end up with something that looks a lot like the actual Gettysburg, just happening a little early is all that's going on. Although I've got to say, so many troops are coming. This early part is much more, I don't know if there's heavier conflict because of my unwillingness to fight, but there's many more troops on the board at this point. About 7:30 Sunday morning, my lighter that's not busted is back. Although, as with all such things, there are often collateral costs. I attribute them to magic, but anyway, I'm very worried about what the costs of that might have turned out to be. Okay, so where am I? I'm heading into the operational movement. Well, let's get started on that. I don't expect a hell of a lot of excitement to happen from this. It's basically the long tail end of the turn, but whatever. Stupid fucking handwritten numbers. This looks like 3410 to me. I zoom in, I still can't really tell. It's 3910, I think. It's just, they're almost unreadable. I don't know what convinced Barber to handwrite the hex grid on here, numbering. It's not like that on the main map of the game, although these guys are, but it's really fucking obnoxious. Like, look, in the 1970s, the early 70s, they had the idea of printing text numbers so you can read them, at the very least. SPI certainly did. And obviously Clash of Arms has the technology to get real numbers on a grid. I don't know why the choice was made on this map to handwrite everything. It's fucking ridiculous. A problem that just afflicts me because I'm trying to run the two maps myself. A player reading one of these maps might well call out incorrect numbers, you know, because it is not readable. One of the things that's bothersome about the connection between the operational and tactical map, I just moved this division on the board. Divisions are different size. They take up the same amount of space no matter what on the operational map, which is essentially 3 hexes. The leader, 1 infantry unit, and the artillery. They do not take up the same amount of space when they're deployed on the tactical map, which is why you get these collisions, right? Because you have larger divisions. You may have attached artillery in different quantities, whatever, because of the Army reserve artillery. The cavalry tends to take up more space, but they take up, the space that they take up is based on the number of units they have within, you know, whatever the formation is that's coming on. Because it's hard to tell what the hell Stuart is. You know? As far as I can tell, he is the cavalry corps, but he can command if there's something under his command. What could be under his command? I don't think there's anything. I think, yeah, he's just 1 cav unit. He's 1 cav division with a corps marker, Whereas the Union has 3 divisions. They have a core CCP marker that doesn't serve any purpose in the game as far as I can tell. And there's no options or anything that allow you to restructure the Union cavalry to utilize that. But yeah, sometimes an infantry division takes up more space than is represented on the map. Sometimes it takes up less. So like in this case, I come from the half space here all the way down to the next hex. I take up 1.5 hexes. That's a goodly amount of space, but it's not terrible, you know. Whereas like this division is taking up more like 2 full hexes. Now, they're represented on the board as 3 hexes, but essentially I'm into this hex, but there would have been room, if this hex extended further, for another division to be in this 3rd hex. So sometimes you've got columns that are operating even, they're even allowed to operate as a road move together and whatnot. And they've got a big separation in between them. Whereas the cav tends to be the same amount of space. The reason they did the extra space for the cav is because cav tends to deploy over more area. But there's no reason not to have made some kind of unit division for the amount of space that divisions take up on the operational map. Because what you end up having is sometimes units are overlapping each other, you know, because their representation here just doesn't match what they look like on the tactical map. I'm not terribly tired, but really not in the mood for this. So I think I'm going to stop. I'm stressing about various things. I have just pushed through the 10 a.m. turn. I think the most notable thing that happened, we'll get to everything else, is the weather hit high heat. High heat is exceptionally painful. All units get a -1 DRM to all ground combat and morale rolls. Okay, that's going to affect both sides. It kind of doesn't make a difference. It means you'll do less damage. Any division which moves more than half of its basic movement allowance, or which engages in ground combat, either as attacker or defender, gets an automatic ×1 DMF to its divisional morale. This means an offensive is essentially impossible. And it may be impossible for the rest of the day. Because it's already, I mean, it's only 11 a.m. and we're hitting that high heat status. There's other games that have operated under that high heat type rules. I'm thinking Monmouth was fought under extreme heat. I don't feel like it had anything like that kind of effect. What it had was, yeah, there's a turn where you don't play. There was a random chance that turns just got skipped, as opposed to like this kind of, yeah, you're just not going to fight here because I can't see it. Now, how is it worded? Let's take a look. Yeah, so it's per division. So, okay. So on any divisional combat, you're going to cause divisional morale factors to both. So yeah, maybe it's not as extreme. I thought it was each unit was going to cause a DMF factor. And a DMF factor can be quite a few boxes. It'll, you know, cause units to just collapse right away. But there is a strong disincentive to further fighting here, on top of just the pain of playing the system. Once again, I'm in the position where I don't know if I'm quitting or not. I really did not enjoy pawing through the counters, and I didn't get everything. I can see some artillery back here that needs to be unflipped. I think I got the Confederates. I didn't bother with the Union, so I have to go back and do that. If I had read the rules to anything else at this point, I think I'd be quitting. The one thing that's keeping me from doing so is this kind of concept of, well, you know, at least you'll have something you can do while you're reading some other rules, but I haven't even fucking started, you know. Sure, I played my XX games, but each of those was kind of in the problem with XX is, yeah, I can read the rules relatively quickly. Maybe not for 22MX, but whatever. But you know, I also end up just playing solidly through. So the idea here would be to read the rules to something that is going to actually give me time to read rules for the next game, as opposed to just taking a break from this. So I think we will end up playing at least one more turn. I'm just so miserable about it. I got to keep this here because the heat effect, I want to make sure that I'm paying attention to it. But I also don't feel like starting another turn right away, because maybe I'll convince myself to do something else. I don't know. So what's our situation? Well, part of Sixth Corps is coming up, and Stuart's like, "Ah, shit, I thought that was open back there." Now, he had a view over here on the map. We can get rid of a couple of these. That there was a force present down there. So it was just stupidity to cross in front of them. I was trying to get away from these guys. I really should have been up there. Then Hancock wouldn't be sitting out there in the middle of nowhere being at risk. I didn't end up moving Meade, or at least not very far, because he's kind of protected now and in the midst of the command area. So what do we have? Well, Union 11th Corps has pushed Heath out of the way here. Merritt was unable to get through because of this stupid artillery piece up here. Most of the Confederates pushing 1st Corps out of the way. It's pretty beaten up. I'm hoping to get it out of there, but I don't quite know how. I got to get out of defend orders. That's one thing. Much as they're advantageous, and try to run back. 12th Corps covering here. 5th has taken up some of the connection between 12th and 6th, and then coming up here, more of 5th and 3rd Union Cav patrolling over there. I'm looking at 2nd Corps relieving the Cav so that I can use it for more Cav appropriate things than trying to defend a line. This is not really the line I want, but I'll be screening at least Culp's Hill and able to dig in there. I'm worried here because 1st Corps picket is coming right down the line and heading straight for the Union forces. It's kind of hard to tell, when the game's so cumbersome that I don't think I'm getting it right, either through not paying attention to the rules or, in terms of like not being completely aware of what they are, or equally likely, just like, yeah, I don't want to fire my artillery, it's too much trouble. That kind of feeling, yeah, it's probably not going to produce at all reasonable results, If you make a game so unplayably painful, it stops being as good a simulation, And you can make arguments one way or another for it, sure. There's games I play that other people view the same way. This is just outside my realm of, like, what I can comfortably play. And I don't know. All right. Let's send this one up, I guess.